In a town where the houses were grand and the trees were always perfectly trimmed, lived a girl named Sky. Sky didn't just have a nice name, she had eyes that looked like the summer sky right before sunset, full of bright blue, soft violet and a curious sparkle. She lived in the biggest, fanciest house on the hill, a place called Atherton Manor, with her very wealthy father, Mr. Alistair. Mr. Alistair had made his money by being incredibly smart, and he loved two things in the world: his late wife, Elara, and the excitement of a grand plan. Sadly, Sky's mother, Elara, had passed away when Sky was very little. Mr. Alistair married again to a woman named Beatrice. Beatrice was tall and wore clothes that glittered, but her smile never quite reached her eyes. She brought two daughters with her, Violet and Daisy. Violet and Daisy weren't mean in the scary kind of way. They were mean in the spoiled and don't like to share kind of way. They believed everything in the world, especially Atherton Manor, should belong to them. From the start, the biggest difference between the four girls wasn't just their hair color or their favorite toys. It was the light they carried inside. Violet and Daisy were good at being bossy. Sky, however, was a bright star. Sky was the kind of girl who read 3 big books in a single week and could explain how a steam engine worked before she was 10. Her school reports used words like exceptional and genius. Violet and Daisy were happy with simple things like getting in a for drawing a nice picture or being picked first for a game. They were just fine. This difference drove Beatrice, the stepmother, absolutely crazy. She wanted her girls to be the best, the most beautiful, and the smartest. But everyone who saw Sky noticed her first. Beatrice began a campaign of subtle, quiet unfairness. It was never a big, loud fight that anyone else could hear. It was small things. When Sky got a special invitation to a science camp, Beatrice sighed, "Oh, that's sweet, but who will tidy the kitchen while you're gone?" And the invitation was quietly forgotten. When a new, pretty dress arrived for the sisters, Sky's always seemed to be a little too big or a little too plain. Sky's room, tucked away in the back of the house, was the smallest and her job list was the longest. Her stepmother always made sure that her chores kept her busy and away from the family when important guests came over. It was a gentle kind of unfairness, like a small, constant drizzle instead of a big storm. But Sky never complained. She would just smile, pick up her cleaning cloth, and think about the next amazing idea she had for a tiny, self-watering garden box she was building from scrap wood. The unfairness didn't dim her light. It just made her work harder to shine outside of her home. Mr. Alistair, the father, was so busy being a powerful businessman that he didn't see the tiny acts of unfairness happening in his home. He saw that Sky was always reading quietly or helping and he thought, what a good quiet girl. He was also very old-fashioned about business and family. He believed a true leader needed a partner. One evening he gathered all 3 girls in the grand drawing room. Beatrice sat beside him looking smug, already imagining her daughter winning. "My dear girls," Mr. Alistair began, his voice booming like a deep drum, "you all know I have a lot of properties, businesses and money. It all needs a good steady hand to manage it after I'm gone." Violet and Daisy leaned forward, their eyes wide as saucers. Sky looked up from a sketchpad where she was designing a small, efficient water filtration system. "I have made a decision," the father announced. "The one of you who shows she is ready to inherit my empire will be the one who first brings home a serious, respectable gentleman, a suitor, who proves he is worthy of joining our family and supporting the business." He loved the idea of a challenge, a race. "The first daughter to present her worthy future husband to me will be the one who inherits the majority of the Atherton fortune. It's a matter of choosing wisely and acting quickly. May the best woman win," he finished with a hearty laugh. Beatrice nearly clapped with delight. She knew her girls were focused on finding a man. Sky, she thought, was focused on boring books and tinkering with tools. "Sky will never win," she thought with a triumphant little smile. "My girls will be rich and Sky will be left with nothing." Sky just nodded politely, her expression completely calm. She closed her sketchpad. She wasn't worried about the grand inheritance game. Why? Because Sky had a secret. Sky's mother, Elara, had not been just a rich man's wife. She had been a brilliant artist, an amazing investor, and a deeply loving mother. Before she passed away, she had known her husband was a little too focused on his big business plans. She hadn't trusted that her husband's future plans would protect her gentle, brilliant daughter. So Elara made a plan of her own. A secret plan. Years ago, in the dead of night, Elara had met with her trusted family lawyer, a kind, wise woman named Mrs. Marlowe. Sky is not like other girls, Elara had whispered. She's going to change the world. I don't want her future tied up in her father's rules or his game. I want her to be free to be herself. Elara's own inheritance, which was substantial, a large, quiet trust fund, a portfolio of growing tech stocks and a small, private villa on a beautiful coast, was set up in a unique way. The secret documents rule. Elara's entire fortune was left to Sky, but the funds could not be accessed, and the existence of the trust could not be revealed to Sky, until the moment she turned 18 years old and met one condition. She must have found true happiness and purpose that was independent of her father's wealth. Elara wanted Sky to know the joy of accomplishment without the cushion of a huge bank account. She wanted Sky to find true love that didn't care about the name Atherton. So Sky already had her own great future waiting, hidden like a precious jewel in a vault. She didn't need to win the grand inheritance game. No one knew this. Not Mr. Alistair, not Beatrice, and especially not Sky. The day after the announcement, Atherton Manor turned into a fancy dress fashion show. Violet and Daisy sprang into action. They spent hours on the phone organizing parties, demanding new clothes, and reviewing lists of eligible, wealthy young men. "This is going to be so easy," Violet declared, holding up a sparkling blue dress. "Rich boys only care about who looks the best, and you know who that is, Daisy." "Exactly," Daisy agreed, adjusting her hair in the mirror. "We just have to look pretty and say, yes, to the first one with a big car." Beatrice was their enthusiastic coach. She made sure the girls were seen at every expensive restaurant and exclusive club. She gave Sky even more chores just to keep her out of sight. "Sky, dear," Beatrice would say sweetly, "there is a terribly large dust bunny under the grandfather clock, and it will take you all evening to get it. No time for parties." Sky, of course, was delighted. More alone time meant more time for her real work. While Violet and Daisy were giggling over diamond rings, Sky was doing 3 secret things. Her work. She was working on her biggest invention yet. A small, portable device that could warn people about floods before they happened. She called it the Sentinel. Her job. She secretly worked a few hours a day after her chores at the local community center, teaching basic coding to younger kids. She used the small amount of money she earned to buy parts for the Sentinel. Her dream. She dreamed of attending the highly competitive Global Innovation Academy, a place where the world's greatest young minds went to turn their ideas into reality. The application was due in 6 months, and she had to earn a full scholarship. Sky's mind was not on finding a worthy gentleman. It was on a diagram of circuits and a plan to change how people in poor villages could be protected from natural disasters. 6 months flew by like a fast train. Violet and Daisy had paraded a dozen young men through the manor. Each one was perfectly rich, perfectly handsome, and perfectly dull. Mr. Alistair kept finding a reason to say no. Too focused on his golf game, too loud. His shoes are scuffed. He was looking for someone truly serious, a partner, not just a pretty face. Sky was completely unaware of the drama. She was running late for her coding class and stopped at a small, cozy coffee shop called The Daily Grind. She was carrying a heavy backpack stuffed with textbooks and the prototype for the Sentinel, which was hidden inside a worn-out lunchbox. As she rushed to place her order, she bumped right into a young man standing by the counter. Crash! Her books tumbled, and the lunchbox with the Sentinel prototype skidded across the floor. "Oh, I am so sorry," Sky cried, her cheeks flushing pink. The young man was tall, with a kind face and intensely focused brown eyes. He quickly bent down to help her gather her things. "No, it's my fault," he said, his voice quiet and sincere. "I was too busy staring at the menu. Let me get that." He picked up the lunchbox. It clattered strangely. He looked at Sky, a curious twinkle in his eye. "Is this your lunch? It sounds suspiciously like metal and wires," he joked gently. Sky laughed, a true bright sound that startled even herself. She hadn't laughed like that in months. "It's my project," she admitted, gathering her books. "It's a secret, though. I'm building something." "Building something? That's fascinating," he said, genuinely interested. He didn't ask what it was, he just respected her secret. "I'm Leo. I'm here doing some research on local weather patterns for a university paper." "I'm Sky," she replied. "And that's a cool project. Mine is about weather too in a way. I have to go now or I'll be late, but it was nice meeting you. Wait. Leo called out as she turned to leave. I work here sometimes. I'd love to hear about your metal and wires project. Maybe we can grab a coffee sometime? Not today, I know you're busy. Sky hesitated. A boy who cares about my work, not my dress or my father's house. I'd like that, Leo, she said, giving him a genuine, happy smile. I'm free on Saturday afternoons. Saturday it is, he confirmed, smiling back. Sky left the coffee shop, her steps light. She was late, but she felt a strange, exciting warmth in her chest. She had met someone who looked at her and only saw her. The next Saturday Sky met Leo. They talked for 2 hours. They didn't talk about money or fancy parties. They talked about how to harness the power of ocean waves. The best way to write computer code efficiently. Why the world needed more practical, simple inventions. Leo was brilliant. He listened to her ideas for the Sentinel with deep respect and offered a few helpful suggestions. Sky found herself opening up completely, sharing her dreams of the Global Innovation Academy. They started meeting every Saturday. They began to realize they didn't just like each other. They saw the world the same way. Leo never asked about her family or her home, and Sky loved that he didn't. He thought she was just a hardworking girl who loved science. Meanwhile, back at Atherton Manor, the inheritance game was heating up. Violet and Daisy, frustrated by their father's strict standards, were becoming desperate. We need a strategy, Beatrice hissed one morning. Your father is getting older. We need to act. Beatrice, using her connections, finally found the perfect candidate, Mr. Roderick Starling. Roderick was handsome, incredibly rich, owned several important businesses, and most importantly knew how to flatter Mr. Alistair's ego. Roderick arrived at Atherton Manor in a limousine the size of a small bus. He was there to court Daisy, but he made sure to compliment Beatrice's taste in art and Mr. Alistair's sharp business mind. He was perfect. Father, Daisy said proudly, presenting Roderick one evening. Roderick is a partner in 3 major firms and he knows how to run an empire. He is exactly what you wanted. Mr. Alistair was almost convinced. He smiled broadly. An excellent catch, Daisy. Excellent indeed. We shall see. Let's arrange a formal dinner next Friday. Roderick, be prepared to answer some tough questions. Daisy and Beatrice were ecstatic. The inheritance was within their grasp. Then the very next morning Sky was just leaving for her coding class when she saw a very out-of-place person standing on the porch ringing the bell. It was Leo. Sky hurried down the steps. Leo, what are you doing here? Is everything all right? He looked a little sheepish. Sky, I know I shouldn't have come to your house, but I found this amazing diagram for an improved sensor, and I wanted to share it with you immediately before I forgot it. I had no idea you lived here. He looked up at the massive, elaborate Atherton Manor with wide eyes. Wow. I never thought you lived in a place like this. It's just where my father lives, Sky said quickly, trying to wave it off. It's nothing special to me. Come on, let's look at the diagram in the garden before. Before she could finish, the main door swung open. Beatrice stood there, wearing a silk robe and a look of cold, sharp surprise. She looked Leo up and down. He was wearing clean, simple clothes, carrying a backpack, and certainly did not look like the respectable gentleman that Mr. Alistair required. And who might you be? Beatrice asked, her voice like cracking ice. Hello, ma'am. I'm Leo. I'm a friend of Sky's. I just stopped by to drop off a paper on. A friend, Beatrice interrupted, making the word sound like a common street urchin. She looked at Sky with a pointed, angry glare. Sky, didn't I tell you to polish the silver teapots? Now get inside and you young man please leave. We only entertain serious callers here. Leo, sensing the hostility, looked at Sky with a gentle, worried frown. I'll see you Saturday, Sky. Yes, Sky said, her own voice steady. Saturday. Beatrice waited until the door was shut, then she spun around, her face close to Sky's. Don't you dare, Beatrice whispered fiercely, bring one of your scruffy bookish friends here. You are not allowed to interfere with the inheritance game. Your father wants a respectable, wealthy man for his heir, not a student. Now go and polish. If I see that boy near this house again, I will tell your father you are trying to sabotage your sisters. Sky just looked at her stepmother calmly. Her eyes, full of the summer sky, held a light that Beatrice couldn't extinguish. She can't stop me from seeing him, Sky thought. She can't stop me from working on the Sentinel. And she certainly can't stop my true future. But in that moment, a new plan formed in Sky's mind. She didn't want the father's money, and she already had her mother's secret future waiting. But she had been mistreated for too long. I need to win the right to be free from this house, she decided. I need to win the game even if I don't want the prize, and then I will walk away on my own terms. The thrill of the challenge was more exciting than any inheritance. The next Friday, the formal dinner for Roderick Starling was held. The dining room was magnificent. Mr. Alistair, Beatrice, Violet, Daisy, and the guest of honor, Roderick, were all dressed in their finest clothes. Sky was told she was needed in the kitchen to help the cook prepare the dessert. This suited her perfectly. She could watch the proceedings from a distance. Roderick was charming. He spoke about his investments, his golf course membership, and his plans to take Daisy on a cruise. Mr. Alistair seemed quite pleased. So, Roderick, Mr. Alistair finally said, leaning back. You have the money, the style, and the ambition. But do you have the heart and the character? Are you a partner? Roderick laughed confidently. Sir, I am the man who brings success to everything he touches. I will support Daisy and your business perfectly. Just as Mr. Alistair was about to raise his glass, the kitchen door swung open and Sky, wearing her simple apron and holding a tray of polished silverware, walked into the room. Everyone stopped talking. Excuse me, Sky said to her father, her voice clear and strong. She walked directly to the table and placed the silverware down perfectly. She looked directly at Roderick. Mr. Starling, Sky said politely, I overheard your conversation. I have a question about your character. Beatrice was horrified. Sky, get back to the kitchen immediately. Mr. Alistair, however, was intrigued. Hold on, Beatrice. Let the girl speak. What is your question, Sky? Sky looked straight at Roderick. You mentioned that you own 3 companies. Do you know that one of them, Sterling Power, just laid off 150 workers in the factory in the poorer district, right before Christmas, to cut costs and boost the company's stock price by 2%. Roderick's confident smile vanished. That is a matter of business efficiency, young lady. They were unnecessary positions. But you own a mansion and drive a fleet of luxury cars, Sky pressed on gently. Was there truly no way to keep those jobs, perhaps by taking a smaller profit margin for 1 quarter? You talk about being a partner. A true partner protects his people. A true partner thinks about more than just himself and his money. She wasn't yelling. She was stating facts calmly with a deep intelligence that made everyone in the room feel small. Mr. Alistair stared at Roderick, a thoughtful frown replacing his smile. He respected ruthlessness, but Sky's question pointed out a simple lack of human decency. Sky! Beatrice shrieked. You are deliberately trying to ruin this. Suddenly the front door burst open. Leo stood there breathless. He was wearing his simple shirt and jeans. He held a small crumpled piece of paper in his hand. I am so sorry to interrupt, Leo said, his eyes scanning the room frantically until they landed on Sky. Sky, I think your Sentinel design. There's a problem with the voltage regulator. The circuit will overload when the humidity spikes. I ran the final simulation and I had to tell you. He rushed past the shocked guests and placed the paper on the table in front of Sky. Sky's face lit up. She completely ignored the fancy dinner party, the rich fiancé, and her angry stepmother. She looked at the diagram Leo had quickly sketched. Oh, you're absolutely right, Leo, she exclaimed. I was calculating for a dry environment. If I just add a low-resistance resistor here. They immediately started discussing the technical details of the circuit board, their voices alive with the thrill of innovation. They didn't notice the silent, stunned people watching them. Mr. Alistair watched the scene unfold. He watched Roderick, who looked annoyed, concerned only with his ruined impression. He watched his daughters Violet and Daisy, who looked completely lost, unable to understand a single word Sky and Leo were saying. He watched Sky and Leo, who were perfectly matched. They spoke the same complicated, brilliant language of ideas and invention. They were a team, a true partnership. Mr. Alistair suddenly slammed his hand on the table. Stop. Sky and Leo looked up startled. Mr. Alistair turned to Roderick. Mr. Starling, you are dismissed. You only care about profit. You are not a suitable partner for this family. Roderick left in a furious huff. Daisy burst into tears. Beatrice looked like she might faint. Mr. Alistair stood up and pointed a thick finger at Leo. You young man. Who are you really? Leo swallowed hard, standing next to Sky. Sir, I'm Leo. I'm a physics student. And I am Sky's friend. Mr. Alistair looked from Leo to Sky, a slow, grudging smile spreading across his face. Sky, he said, his voice quiet now. You brought me a man who is clearly brilliant, who cares more about your work than his manners, and who understands what a real partnership means. You brought me a man who cares more about a circuit board than an inheritance. He chuckled deeply. You beat your sisters, my girl. You have won the grand inheritance game. Sky stared at her father, then at Leo, then at the stunned faces of her stepfamily. She hadn't meant to win. She had just meant to be herself. Father, I didn't mean to. It is done. Mr. Alistair roared, lifting his glass. Sky is the heir. Beatrice looked at Sky, her face a mask of utter fury, completely unaware that the girl they had just insulted and mistreated was now the legal inheritor of their entire world. The next morning the house was silent and tense. Daisy and Violet wouldn't speak to Sky. Beatrice hadn't left her room. Mr. Alistair called Sky to his study. The room smelled of old leather and wealth. Hi girl, he said, beaming. You surprised me. I've already called the lawyers. The estate is yours. You are the sole heir. And that young man, Leo, let's get him a job in one of our tech firms. We'll make him respectable. Sky sat on the edge of the large leather chair. She looked at her father, a man who loved her but never truly saw her. Father, she said gently, I have something to tell you. Yes, he prompted, already writing notes about Leo's future job. I don't want the inheritance. Mr. Alistair dropped his pen. Clatter. You what? I don't want the properties, the businesses, or the bank account, Sky explained. It was your game and I won it by accident. But this is not my dream. She stood up. My dream is to earn a scholarship to the Global Innovation Academy. My dream is to finish the Sentinel and start a company that helps people who have nothing. I want to build a better world, but I need to do it from the bottom up so I know I earned it, and so that I can be an inspiration to everyone who thinks they need a rich family to succeed. She walked to the window, her sky-colored eyes shining with purpose. If I take your money, Father, no one will ever believe I am a true inventor. They will just say I bought my way to the top. I don't want to be known as Mr. Alistair's daughter. I want to be known as Sky the inventor. Mr. Alistair was speechless. He had never met anyone who refused so much money. But what about the condition? He stammered. If you refuse, the inheritance goes to your sisters. Sky smiled, a true peaceful smile. Then let them have it. They want it more than I do. But what will you live on? How will you go to the academy? Sky picked up her backpack, which contained the Sentinel prototype and her few belongings. I have my small job at the community center and I have my brain. I'll be fine. I'll earn my scholarship. She gave her father a hug. I love you, Father. But I have to go find my own path. And with that, Sky walked out of Atherton Manor, leaving behind the mansion, the fortune, and the family drama, to find her true purpose in the world. Mr. Alistair sat in his study, shell-shocked. He had just watched his most brilliant daughter give up his entire empire. After several days of confusion, he called the lawyers to redo the will and transfer the inheritance back to Violet and Daisy. The next day, Beatrice, Violet, and Daisy were sitting in the drawing room, celebrating their sudden accidental victory. They had won by default. The silly girl. Beatrice gloated. She gave it all up for a student and a crazy science project. Now we are the Athertons. A chauffeur-driven car pulled up outside. A moment later, Mrs. Marlowe, the family lawyer, walked in holding a single ancient leather folder. Good morning, Mr. Alistair, she said. I am here to execute the final part of your late wife Elara's estate. It is a matter of a few simple papers. Beatrice scoffed. Elara? She only had a few paintings. Send the papers to that ungrateful girl wherever she is, Mrs. Marlowe. We have no time for small family matters. Mrs. Marlowe calmly opened the leather folder and placed a document on the table. I'm afraid, Mrs. Marlowe said, her voice gentle but firm, this cannot wait. 2 conditions have been met for Elara's trust to be revealed to her daughter, Sky. Sky has turned 18. She has found true happiness and purpose independent of her father's wealth, which Sky proved by walking away from the main fortune. Mrs. Marlowe looked directly at Beatrice, Violet and Daisy. The late Mrs. Elara Atherton, being a highly successful independent investor, left her entire private estate to her only daughter, Sky. Her estate includes a substantial unmortgaged villa on the Sapphire Coast, a private trust fund of $80 million, which has grown significantly over the years, and controlling shares in the original tech companies that Mr. Alistair refused to invest in. Silence fell over the room. Mr. Alistair's jaw dropped. $80 million? Elara. But she told me she only dabbled in art. No, sir, Mrs. Marlowe corrected. She was a master of silent investing. In fact, her fortune now dwarfs your own. It is simply a matter of scale. Your fortune is large. Hers is truly immense, and it all belongs to Sky. Beatrice's face went from smug celebration to pale horror. The girl she had forced to scrub floors and wash dishes was, and always had been, the true heiress, the one with the massive quiet fortune. Violet and Daisy looked ready to faint. They had just received their father's smaller fortune while the girl they scorned walked away with a queen's ransom. Sky is now, Mrs. Marlowe announced, placing the final papers on the desk, the richest person in the entire family. The revelation of Elara's immense fortune sent a shockwave through the family. Mr. Alistair, realizing how wrong he had been about his quiet, brilliant wife, felt a sharp pang of guilt. He also felt enormous pride that his daughter was so independently successful. He decided to leave the Atherton fortune to Violet and Daisy as he had promised, but he also quietly started a foundation dedicated to funding young inventors, named, of course, the Sky Foundation. Beatrice, Violet and Daisy, however, were not happy. They were furious that the girl they treated so badly was now untouchable. Their victory was short-lived. Within 6 months, Violet and Daisy, who had no business sense, used their father's money to buy ridiculously expensive things. They threw huge, wasteful parties, bought 5 luxury cars, and decided the best way to run a business was to fire all the smart people and hire their friends. It took less than 2 years for Mr. Alistair's businesses to start failing. They lost contracts, mismanaged funds, and quickly spent through their father's liquid assets. When the money was gone, they were forced to sell Atherton Manor. They had nothing left. Beatrice, refusing to work a real job, pleaded with her new husband, Mr. Alistair, who was now living a much simpler life on a small, honest retirement income. Beatrice, he said gently, you and the girls are going to have to learn to stand on your own 2 feet just like Sky did. The twist of fate. Desperate for money, Beatrice found a job. A cleaning service hired her to clean houses in the wealthier parts of town. One sunny afternoon, Beatrice was sent to clean a gorgeous, modern penthouse apartment downtown. The apartment was pristine, filled with blueprints and advanced technology. The door opened and a young woman stood there wearing a simple but sharp business suit. It was Sky. Sky was now a successful entrepreneur. She had won the scholarship, completed the academy, and her company, Sentinel Systems, was a global success, manufacturing her life-saving flood sensors. Leo was her brilliant chief engineer and, more importantly, her fiancé. They had been working together to change the world just as she had dreamed. Beatrice stood there, frozen, holding a bucket and a mop. Sky looked at her former stepmother, not with anger but with a quiet, polite calm. "Hello, Beatrice," Sky said. "You're early for the cleaning appointment." Beatrice couldn't speak. She, the woman who had made Sky scrub floors for years, was now Sky's maid. Sky hired Beatrice and her sisters Violet and Daisy to work for her, not as punishment, but as an opportunity to earn an honest living. They were given simple, respectable jobs: cleaning Sky's office, running errands, and helping with basic maintenance. They had to work hard and politely, and they were paid a fair wage. Sky never once reminded them of the past. She treated them with the respect that Beatrice had never shown her. Beatrice, Violet, and Daisy learned the true value of a dollar. They learned humility. They learned that real success is built on hard work and kindness, not cruelty and inherited wealth. Years later, Sky stood on a stage in front of thousands of people. She was no longer the quiet, maltreated girl. She was Dr. Sky Atherton, one of the world's leading innovators, a young woman who had started her company with an idea sketched on a napkin. She was presenting a new, clean energy solution, An invention far bigger than the Sentinel. Leo stood in the audience, beaming with pride. They were getting married next month, not in a grand manner, but on the small, beautiful Sapphire Coast where her mother's villa was, a place of peace and true beauty. Skye finished her presentation to thunderous applause. A reporter rushed up to her backstage. "Dr. Atherton," the reporter asked excitedly, "everyone knows your father was a famous millionaire. You could have just inherited everything. Why did you walk away from all that wealth to start from scratch?" Skye smiled, a gentle, powerful smile that held the whole sky in its depth. "Because the greatest fortune in the world is not measured in dollars," she said clearly. "It's measured in impact. My mother gave me a tremendous gift. Her trust fund was enough for me to never worry. But she gave me a greater, secret gift, the chance to find out who I was without it. If I had taken the easy road, I would only be a rich girl. By choosing the hard road, by choosing to build something that mattered brick by brick from scratch with my own hands and my own brilliant partner, Leo, I became something much more valuable." She paused, looking right into the camera, inspiring millions of young people watching her. "I became a woman who could truly inspire the world. You don't need an already made fortune to change the future. You only need an idea, hard work, and the courage to believe in your own brilliance."